Thanks very much for staying with us. Time now for Eye on Africa with me, Georgia Calvin-Smith. Tonight, a tense wait for those living in the capital of the region currently at war with the Ethiopian federal government. A 72-hour deadline for surrender issued against Tigray fighters runs out Wednesday. But the Prime Minister says that the international community should not interfere. Also, female genital mutilation's been banned in Senegal for more than 20 years, but many rural families continue to mutilate their daughters in secret. But campaigners are slowly making headway in changing traditional attitudes. And as news of the death of one of football's biggest icons ricochets around the world, African fans of the late Argentinian Diego Maradona have been remembering his highs and lows. But first, a 72-hour surrender deadline issued by Ethiopia to the well-armed northern region with which it is currently at war runs out on Wednesday, and there is now a tense wait for the next move from federal troops. They've surrounded Mekele with tanks, the capital of Tigray, and had warned that there would be no mercy in an assault that Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed has threatened will follow the ultimatum. Elsewhere, communities have been heavily bombarded and tens of thousands of refugees have fled to Sudan. Abiy's rejected calls to stop the fighting. Maria Girth Nicolescu joins us with more from Addis. Maria, so technically the deadline has passed, if we're counting from 72 hours from when it was first issued. So where do things stand at the moment?
Well, the statement in which a 72-hour deadline was declared was published on Sunday afternoon around 3:30 p.m. Ethiopian time, but so far there's been no information about any fighting going on in Mekele. The communications blackout in the region is going to make it very difficult to kind of find out what's going on in Mekele and to verify any information that will be given to us by the government and by the leaders of the TPLF, the Tigray People's Liberation Front. It's unclear whether federal troops have now really surrounded Mekele and when exactly this attack will be launched, but it seems like Abiy Ahmed is very willing to go through with this. The government says that some Tigrayan soldiers have already started to surrender, but the leader of the TPLF assures Tigrayan forces will continue fighting and that they are ready to die for their homeland. Human rights organizations are now voicing their concern about the government's intention to attack Mekele, saying that targeting civilian populations would be contrary to international law. You know, many Ethiopians stand behind Abiy Ahmed in his offensive to remove the TPLF, but many others are now very worried about a possible bloodbath in Mekele, where they're still unable to contact their relatives.
This is a very strange situation for somebody who won the Nobel Peace Prize just last year to find himself in. Abiy said that his hand was forced in initiating this conflict, but he's also been accused of failing in a duty of care to civilians. How far has all of this affected his international standing, do you think?
Well, the conflict has sparked a number of international reactions. First, because there is a fear that the conflict will destabilize the entire Horn of Africa. And second, because Abiy Ahmed's actions have been really closely monitored ever since he came to power in 2018. And then even more so after he won the Nobel Peace Prize. The UN Secretary General called for both parties to de-escalate the tensions. There's been statements from several countries, such as France or the US, and the African Union also sent a special envoys to Addis Ababa. But for Abiy Ahmed, this military operation is very necessary. He is determined to follow through with the removal of the TPLF at all costs, and he sees no solution through negotiations at the moment. He accuses TPLF forces of trying to internationalize the conflict, for example, by firing missiles towards Eritrea, and he called the international community to respect the principle of non-interference, and he said Ethiopia was capable of establishing the rule of law on its own.
Thanks very much. Maria Girth Nicolescu there for us in Addis Ababa. Now, as mentioned by Maria, Tigray remains under a communications blackout. Families and friends of those still there have struggled to get word of whether their loved ones are okay. The conflict has drawn international attention and both sides have accused each other of atrocities committed against civilians. On Wednesday, protesters in South Africa held a rally outside of the Department of International Relations and Cooperation, calling for an end to the fighting in Ethiopia. Many at the demonstration were from Tigray.
Abiy Ahmed is a killer. You don't deserve a Nobel for that guy. Never. He's bombing our people.
There is no internet, there is no electricity. Everything is blocked. My family is living there, and I don't know nothing about what's happening, whether they are dying or they are still alive. We just hear that they are bombing there.
Well, despite female genital mutilation technically being banned in Senegal for more than 20 years, an estimated 1 in 10 girls are victims of the practice. It's in decline in cities, but not so much in rural communities, where many parents continue to mutilate their daughters in secret. Our correspondents report from Tambacounda in the southeast.
17-year-old Ma Awa lives near Tambacounda, 500 kilometres east of Dakar. Like many girls in this rural area, it was her own family that subjected her to female genital mutilation in the name of tradition. In Tambacounda, people are starting to speak out against the practice. This afternoon, social workers have planned group discussions with the population, their number one priority, the scars of FGM. But their arguments are met with scepticism.
La plupart de ces filles qui ont des règles douloureuses, elles sont à 100%, elles sont excisées. Donc moi je lis ça, n'est-ce pas, aux effets de l'excision, alors qu'elle soutient le contraire.
Affaire ji hewɗi ɗin sa yiɓe heɓay mum probléme ji koye programme rafi cellal ɗin te palanirji ɗin kadi programme majji no tawa e programme uji muɗum.
Efforts to change mentalities about FGM have brought few results in Senegal. According to the National Statistics Agency, almost a third of the population in rural areas support the practice, nearly 10% in cities. In Dakar, this activist is sounding the alarm.
En réalité, ça ne diminue pas, comme on l'a dit, ça augmente. Et c'est ça qui nous inquiète, nous, le plus. Les populations, je ne sais pas, à cause de la situation de la pauvreté et du respect des normes sociales, continuent vraiment à développer ces pratiques-là.
Female genital mutilation is punishable by 5 years in prison. Yet very few arrests have been made in Senegal, according to the Ministry of Women's Affairs.
Central African republics heading towards presidential and legislative polls in December, with about 620,000 refugees still outside of the country. They won't be able to vote because no arrangements were made to help them register or cast a ballot from afar. Our team tells us more.
250 refugees crossed the Obangi River from the neighboring Democratic Republic of Congo to a minor port in Bangui, 7 years after the civil war in the Central African Republic. Thanks to a repatriation operation coordinated by the UN High Commissioner for Refugees, Fidel returns home. He hopes to cast his vote during the December 27 elections.
Le vote encore là. Donc s'il y a moyen que l'année puisse nous faire de cartes et nous aurons possible de voter. Nous sommes très fiers, nous sommes des citoyens centrafricains, nous avons l'envie de voter.
However, these returnees are very late. The deadline for registrations has passed. We spoke to Boris, who was lucky enough to register.
Oui, ça c'est ma fiche électeur. Dans tous les centrafricains, en tant que bon citoyen, il fallait avoir une carte d'électeur.
Aged 37, he's among the 2 million Central Africans who will go to the polls. He returned to Central Africa last year. Since 2016, about 150,000 refugees have been repatriated. However, the number of returnees eligible to vote are between 250 and 300,000, according to Anicet Dologele, an unsuccessful 2015 presidential candidate. In March 2020, he launched a campaign for returnees to vote.
Nous avons, au niveau de l'Assemblée nationale, interpellé le Premier ministre dès le mois de mars, mais on a senti une grande réticence. Le gouvernement n'a jamais voulu que ces réfugiés votent.
On the other hand, Roland Bangui Betangayi, Member of Parliament and Chairman of the Commission in charge of the Electoral Code, lays the blame on organizational issues.
En aucun moment, les organisateurs des élections, ni le gouvernement, est animé d'une mauvaise intention quelconque, mais ce sont les aspects techniques et l'expression surtout de la volonté du législateur centrafricain qui consiste à ne pas autoriser les réfugiés à voter.
The refugee vote could exacerbate tensions in the Central African country as campaigning prepares to kick off. 620,000 Central African citizens still live outside the country.
And finally, as news of the death of one of football's biggest icons ricocheted around the world, African fans of the late Diego Maradona have been remembering his highs and his lows. The Argentinian was just 60 when he passed away on Wednesday. He reportedly suffered a cardiac arrest, having undergone brain surgery earlier this month. He had a troubled life, but fans across some of Africa's most football-mad nations remember his glory days.
Diego Maradona, on s'en souvient encore depuis on est tout petit. C'est quelqu'un qui a marqué le football mondial quand même. Donc apprendre son décès, vraiment nous sommes vraiment consternés. C'est un grand coup pour le football et puis pour son pays d'origine qui est l'Argentine.
Vraiment ça fait mal parce que Diego Maradona c'est comme un dieu du football. Pour moi quoi. Parce que quand tu le vois jouer, même toi tu as envie de jouer.
Diego Armando a commencé à jongler le ballon des pieds, la poitrine, les oreilles. Nous tous, on était déjà perdus. On disait que ce match, on ne peut pas.
C'est le plus grand joueur de l'histoire. C'est le plus grand joueur de l'histoire. On ne peut pas passer par autre chose. Mais si on dit Pelé avec ses buts, on peut discuter un peu, mais Maradona, c'est quelque chose d'autre. C'est du génie.
Well, that's it for Eye on Africa. Thanks for joining us, and do so again if you can. Take care.